It's incredible, but this company makes $1 billion in profit every day. Don't get me wrong, that's not revenue, it's pure profit. Let me put it this way, it's more than Apple, Google, and Microsoft combined. Think about that. With a value of over $2 trillion, this company is the most valuable company on the planet. Yet most people can't even pronounce its name correctly, don't know who runs it, and don't really know or understand what it does. And they certainly don't know how the company controls their daily, ordinary lives. This company is Saudi Aramco, the giant among the invisible giants that power the world. Its story is stranger than you could ever imagine. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. And if you turn on notifications, it will be much easier to stay informed about new videos. Now just think for a second. Right now, as you watch this, Saudi Aramco is extracting 12 million barrels of oil from beneath the Arabian desert, which is an unimaginable amount of oil extraction. Think about it. That's enough to fill 800 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and they do this every single day. Saudi Aramco, which has been maintaining this production for over 80 years, claims they can continue doing so for another 50 years. They control more oil than all of the top 5 oil companies combined. They have more proven reserves than all other continents. And now for the truly mind-boggling part, while their competitors spend $30, $40, or even $50 per barrel, they can produce at a cost of less than $3 per barrel. It's like they're playing with cheat codes. It's hard to believe. But Saudi Aramco isn't just an oil company. It's an entire nation's life support system. It funds Saudi Arabia's military, its welfare state, its massive construction projects. Every Saudi citizen gets free healthcare, free education, subsidized housing, all paid for by Aramco's rivers of black gold. Without Aramco, Saudi Arabia would still be a desert kingdom of nomads and merchants. With it, they're building cities in the sand that make Las Vegas look modest. The company doesn't just pump oil, it pumps the lifeblood of an entire civilization. And soon, you're about to discover how a company that nobody can buy shares in, that operates in complete secrecy, that answers to no shareholders except a single royal family, became the most powerful corporation in human history. Because the story of Saudi Aramco is really 3 stories. The story of how Americans discovered Saudi oil and lost it. The story of how a desert kingdom nationalized the world's greatest treasure. And the story of what happens when the oil stops flowing. Let's start in 1933. Saudi Arabia doesn't exist yet. Not really. It's just been unified by a warrior king named Ibn Saud, who conquered rival tribes with sword and rifle. The country is broke, desperately, existentially broke. The king's finance minister is literally keeping the national treasury in a tin trunk. Government salaries are paid in sacks of rice and dates. The annual pilgrimage to Mecca, the kingdom's only real source of income, has dried up due to the Great Depression. Ibn Saud needs money, fast, or his newly unified kingdom will fracture back into warring tribes. Enter the Americans. Standard Oil of California, later known as Chevron, sends a geologist named Max Steinicke to the Arabian desert. Everyone thinks he's insane. The British have been looking for oil in the Middle East for decades. They found it in Iran, in Iraq, but they've written off Saudi Arabia as barren. The desert is so harsh that previous expeditions have ended with men dying of thirst, their bodies mummified by the heat before anyone could find them. But Steinicke is different. He's not looking where everyone else looked. He has a theory about ancient geological formations, about oil trapped beneath layers of salt and limestone. For 5 years, Steinicke and his team drill in the desert. They find nothing. The board back in San Francisco wants to pull out. They've spent millions of dollars, a fortune during the Depression, with nothing to show for it. The workers are dying from heat stroke, dysentery, scorpion bites. The Saudis are losing faith. Ibn Saud needs immediate cash, not promises of future wealth. Steinicke begs for 1 more year, 1 more chance. In 1938, at a depth of nearly 5,000 feet in a place called Dhahran, they hit something. The drill breaks through into a vast underground chamber. Gas erupts with such force, It shoots hundreds of feet into the air. Then comes the oil. Black, thick, endless oil. But this isn't just any oil discovery. As they drill more wells, as they map the underground reservoirs, they realize they've found something unprecedented. The Gawar Field, as it's later named, is a monster. It's 174 miles long, 19 miles wide. It contains more oil than all the proven reserves in the United States. One field. And it's not alone. Safaniya, Sheba, Correas, field after field of unimaginable wealth. The Americans have discovered not just oil, but the greatest concentration of petroleum ever found on Earth. The company they form is called the Arabian American Oil Company, Aramco. It's a joint venture between Standard Oil of California, Texaco, Exxon, and Mobil. The Americans provide the technology, the expertise, the markets. The Saudis provide the oil rights. The deal seems brilliant for America. They control the taps to the world's largest oil reserves. They're going to power American industry, American cars, American dominance for generations. What they don't realize is that they're teaching the Saudis everything they know. Every technique, every technology, every secret of the oil business. They're training their own replacements. The 1940s and 50s are the golden age of American Aramco. They build entire cities in the desert. Dhahran becomes a little piece of America transplanted to Arabia, with suburban houses, baseball diamonds, swimming pools. American engineers live like colonial masters in air-conditioned compounds, while Saudi workers learn the business from the ground up. The oil flows west, the money flows east. By 1950, Aramco is producing 500,000 barrels per day. By 1960, it's 1.2 million. The company is printing money. But something is changing in the wider world. Countries are waking up to the real value of their resources. In Iran, Prime Minister Mossadegh nationalizes the oil industry, kicking out British petroleum. In Egypt, Nasser seizes the Suez Canal. In Iraq, revolutionaries overthrow the monarchy and threaten Western oil interests. The age of resource nationalism has begun. The Saudis are watching, learning, planning. They see what's possible. Why should Americans own Saudi oil? Why should the profits flow to shareholders in New York and San Francisco? The first move comes in 1950. The Saudis demand a 50-50 profit split. The Americans agree, thinking it's better than losing everything like the British did in Iran. But it's just the beginning. Year by year, the Saudis ask for more control, more profits, more positions for Saudi nationals. The Americans think they're being clever, making concessions slowly, keeping the Saudis happy while maintaining control. They don't realize they're already losing. By the 1960s, a new generation of Saudis has emerged. They've been educated in American universities, trained in Aramco facilities, versed in both petroleum engineering and international finance. The most important is Ahmed Zaki Yamani, appointed oil minister in 1962. Yamani is smooth, sophisticated, educated at Harvard Law School. He understands the oil business better than many American executives, and he has a plan to take it all. The strategy is brilliant in its patience. Don't nationalize suddenly like Iran or Iraq. That leads to sanctions, coups, chaos. Instead, buy Aramco piece by piece. In 1973, the Saudi government acquires a 25% stake. In 1974, it's 60%. The Americans are paid generously for their shares, so they don't resist too strongly. They still have management contracts, technology agreements, marketing deals. They think they're still in control. But control is an illusion when someone else owns the asset. The 1973 oil embargo changes everything. When Israel fights the Yom Kippur War, Saudi Arabia and OPEC cut off oil to America. Prices quadruple overnight. Gas lines stretch for miles. The American economy crashes into recession. Suddenly, everyone understands the real power dynamics. It doesn't matter who has the technology or the markets. What matters is who controls the taps. And King Faisal of Saudi Arabia has just shown he can bring the Western world to its knees with a single decree. In 1976, the Saudis make their move. They announce the complete takeover of Aramco. By 1980, it's done. The Arabian-American oil company becomes Saudi Aramco. The Americans are reduced to service contractors, selling technology and expertise, but owning nothing. The greatest transfer of wealth in history is complete. The Saudis now control assets worth trillions of dollars bought for billions. The Americans console themselves that at least they still buy the oil, still refine it, still profit from it, but they've lost the real prize, control. What happens next is even more remarkable. The Saudis don't just run Aramco, they transform it. Under Saudi control, Aramco becomes more efficient, more profitable, more powerful than it ever was under American management. They invest hundreds of billions in new technology, new fields, new refineries. They build the world's largest oil processing facility at Abqaiq, capable of handling 7 million barrels per day. They create the master gas system, a network of pipelines that captures natural gas that used to be burned off as waste. By 1980, Saudi Aramco is fully Saudi, but this is when the real story begins. Because what the Saudis do next defies every prediction. Western experts expect them to run Aramco into the ground, to treat it like a cash cow, milking it dry without reinvestment. Instead, they turn it into the most sophisticated oil company on earth. They hire the best engineers from around the world, paying salaries that make Silicon Valley look cheap. They invest in technology that seems like science fiction, and they keep everything, absolutely everything, secret. Consider what Aramco actually owns. Beneath the Saudi desert lies 267 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. That's more than the United States, Russia, and China combined. But that's just what they admit to. Independent analysts suspect the real number might be 300, even 400 billion barrels. At current consumption rates, they have enough oil to keep pumping for another 50 years. And here's the kicker. They claim they're finding new oil faster than they're pumping the old oil. Their reserves are actually growing, not shrinking. The numbers are so staggering, they seem fake. Every day, Aramco produces enough oil to fill 4,000 Boeing 747s. Their Ghawar field alone produces more oil than entire countries. The Safaniya offshore field is the largest offshore oil field in the world. The Shebaa field, in the middle of the empty quarter desert, operates in conditions so extreme that computers shut down from the heat, yet it pumps 750,000 barrels per day. These aren't just oil fields, they're money printing machines. But production is only part of the equation. Aramco's real advantage is cost. In America, shale oil costs $40 to $50 per barrel to produce. In deepwater Brazil, it's $45. In the Canadian oil sands, it's $60. Saudi Aramco, $3. $3. When oil trades at $80 per barrel, American companies make $30 to $40 profit. Aramco makes $77. It's not competition, it's domination. They could crash oil prices to $20, destroy every other oil company on earth, and still make money. The only reason they don't is because they need high prices to fund the Saudi state. Let's talk about what this money actually buys. Saudi Arabia has 35 million citizens. Every single one gets free healthcare, from basic checkups to complex surgeries, free education from kindergarten through PhD, subsidized housing with interest-free loans for citizens to build homes, subsidized gasoline, electricity, water, no income tax, no sales tax. The government employs 70% of Saudi citizens, many in jobs that barely require showing up. It's a welfare state that makes Scandinavia look stingy, and it's all paid for by Aramco. The numbers are mind-boggling. In 2022, when oil prices spiked, Aramco made $161 billion in profit. That's more profit than any company has ever made in a single year. Apple's best year? $99 billion. ExxonMobil's? $56 billion. Aramco made more profit in 2022 than Amazon has made in its entire history. And where does this money go? Straight to the Saudi government, which owns 98.5% of the company. It's not a company. It's a nation's ATM machine. The Saudi royal family, the House of Saud, treats Aramco like their personal bank account. There are 15,000 Saudi princes, each receiving monthly stipends ranging from $8,000 to $270,000, depending on their proximity to the throne. The king's personal fortune is estimated at $18 billion. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto ruler, spent $450 million on a Leonardo da Vinci painting, $500 million on a yacht, $300 million on a French chateau. This isn't corruption in the traditional sense. The country and the company are inseparable. Aramco is Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is Aramco. But here's where it gets really interesting. In 2016, something unprecedented happens. The Saudis announce they're going to sell shares in Aramco, going public. The most secretive company in the world is about to open its books. Wall Street goes insane. This is the deal of the century. Bankers calculate commissions in the billions. Investors dream of owning a piece of the ultimate money machine. The IPO is supposed to value Aramco at $2 trillion, making it the largest public offering in history. Then reality hits. To go public, Aramco has to reveal its secrets. For the first time, the world sees inside the black box, the reserves data, the production costs, the profit margins, and something doesn't add up. Independent auditors can't verify the reserve numbers. The company admits that the Saudi government can override any business decision. They can force Aramco to cut production, to sell oil below market price, to fund government projects. Investors realize they wouldn't really own Aramco. They'd own pieces of paper while the Saudi government maintains total control. The international IPO is scaled back, then canceled. Instead, the Saudis list 1.5% of the company on the Riyadh Stock Exchange. Local investors, many forced to buy by the government, purchase shares. The IPO raises $29 billion, the largest ever, but it's a fraction of what was planned. The international investment community has sent a message. Aramco might be the most profitable company on earth, but it's uninvestable. You can't separate the company from the country, and the country is an absolute monarchy where the king's word is law. But the Saudis don't care. They don't need foreign investors. They have something better: captive customers. Every car, every plane, every ship that burns oil is dependent on Saudi Aramco. They can manipulate prices at will. When America annoys them, they flood the market with oil, crashing prices and destroying American shale producers. When they need more revenue, they cut production, prices spike, and the world pays. They're not just a company, they're a weapon. The 2020 oil price war shows this power in action. Russia refuses to cut production. The Saudis respond by opening the taps fully. Oil prices don't just fall, they go negative. For the first time in history, producers pay people to take their oil. American shale companies collapse. Russian revenues crater. The global oil industry loses $1 trillion in value. After 2 months, Russia surrenders. Production cuts are agreed. Prices recover. The Saudis have shown they can destroy the entire oil industry whenever they choose. It's not business, it's geopolitics. But Aramco isn't just about oil anymore. They're investing hundreds of billions in petrochemicals, turning oil into plastics, fertilizers, synthetic materials. They're building refineries in China, India, South Korea, locking in customers for decades. They're developing carbon capture technology, claiming they can make oil carbon neutral. They're even investing in renewable energy, not to replace oil, but to free up more oil for export. Every solar panel in Saudi Arabia means more oil to sell abroad. The mastermind behind this transformation is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS. He's 38 years old, ruthless and incredibly ambitious. He sees what everyone sees. The age of oil is ending. Electric cars are coming. Solar and wind are getting cheaper. Climate change is real. But instead of denial, MBS has a plan. Vision 2030. Transform Saudi Arabia before the oil runs out. And Aramco is the piggy bank that will fund this transformation. The plan is audacious. Build NEOM, a $500 billion futuristic city in the desert. Create the Red Sea Project, a tourism destination to rival Dubai. develop a domestic military industry, build a sovereign wealth fund that can sustain the country without oil, all funded by Aramco's profits. They're literally racing against time, trying to build an entire economy before their only source of wealth disappears. It's the largest economic transformation ever attempted. But there's a problem. The math doesn't work. Saudi Arabia spends $300 billion per year. Aramco, in a good year, provides maybe $200 billion. The rest comes from borrowing and sovereign wealth funds. But those funds are being depleted, debt is rising, and oil demand is projected to peak by 2030. The Saudis are burning through money faster than Aramco can generate it. They're betting everything on oil prices staying high long enough to complete the transformation. It's the ultimate gamble. Meanwhile, Aramco keeps pumping. They've developed technology that seems impossible. They can drill horizontally for miles underground, following oil deposits like underground rivers. They use artificial intelligence to predict equipment failures before they happen. They inject seawater into depleted fields, literally squeezing out every last drop of oil. They've turned oil extraction into a science so precise that they can adjust production by the hour based on global demand. The workforce is fascinating. Aramco employs 70,000 people, but only a fraction are involved in actual oil production. The rest are building cities, running hospitals, managing schools. Aramco isn't just an oil company, it's a state within a state. They have their own airports, their own security forces, their own intelligence service. They operate beyond Saudi law in many ways. The Aramco compounds are islands of liberalism in a conservative kingdom where women can drive, alcohol is secretly available, and Western customs prevail. September 14th, 2019. 4 a.m. 18 drones and 7 cruise missiles slam into the heart of Saudi Aramco. The Abqaiq processing facility, which handles 70% of Saudi oil production, erupts in flames. The Kharaiz oil field is hit simultaneously. In minutes, half of Saudi oil production is offline. 5% of global oil supply vanishes. Oil prices spike 20% in a single day, the largest jump in history. The world holds its breath. If Aramco can be hit this easily, if the world's oil supply is this vulnerable, what does that mean for everything? The attack claimed by Yemeni Houthis, but likely orchestrated by Iran, exposes the terrifying fragility of the global economy. Aramco processes the damage, 11 strikes, surgical precision, bypassing billions in Saudi air defenses. The attackers knew exactly where to hit. They targeted the stabilization towers that remove hydrogen sulfide from oil. Without these towers, the oil is too poisonous to refine. It's useless. The message is clear. Aramco might be the world's most valuable company, but it's also the world's biggest target. What happens next is remarkable. Aramco fixes the damage in 2 weeks, 2 weeks to repair what should have taken months. They fly in equipment from around the world. Engineers work 24-hour shifts. They tap emergency reserves to maintain deliveries. By October, production is fully restored. The world barely notices the disruption. But inside Aramco, inside the Saudi government, everything has changed. They've realized their ultimate vulnerability. Their entire nation depends on a handful of facilities that can be destroyed by cheap drones. The $2 trillion company could become worthless overnight. This vulnerability drives the Saudis' desperate push for diversification. They're not just worried about peak oil demand. They're worried about war, about climate change, about technological disruption. They're worried that their moment in history is ending. The signs are everywhere. Tesla's market value exceeds that of every traditional car company combined. China is building more renewable energy capacity than Saudi Arabia has oil capacity. Major banks are divesting from fossil fuels. The writing isn't just on the wall, it's in neon lights. But here's what nobody understands. Saudi Aramco has a secret weapon. They know exactly how much oil every other country has. They have the best geologists, the best data, the best intelligence, and they know something terrifying. Everyone is lying about their reserves. Venezuela's heavy oil is too expensive to extract. Russia's Siberian fields are depleting faster than admitted. American shale wells decline 70% after the first year. The world is running out of cheap oil, and Aramco controls the last great reserves of easily extractable petroleum. This gives them incredible leverage. As other sources deplete, as extraction costs rise everywhere else, Aramco becomes more powerful, not less. They can wait out the competition, let the shale producers go bankrupt, let the offshore drillers abandon their platforms, let the tar sands projects shut down. When the dust settles, Aramco will still be there pumping oil for $3 a barrel while everyone else struggles at $50. They're not competing in the oil business. They're playing a different game entirely. The game is about timing. When does oil demand actually peak? The Saudis are betting it's later than everyone thinks. They point to Asia, where billions are entering the middle class, buying their first cars, taking their first flights. They point to petrochemicals, where oil demand keeps growing regardless of electric vehicles. They point to aviation and shipping, where no alternative to oil exists. They calculate they have 20, maybe 30 years before demand truly collapses. That's 20 to 30 years of trillion-dollar profits, enough to transform their entire nation if they play it right. Crown Prince MBS. MBS is playing for everything. He's 38 years old. He could rule for 50 years. He'll either be the prince who transformed Saudi Arabia into a modern economy or the one who presided over its collapse back into desert poverty. There's no middle ground, his vision. 2030 isn't just an economic plan, it's an existential necessity, and Aramco is the cash machine that must fund it all. Every billion in profit is another bet on the future. Every oil price spike is another year of breathing room. The projects they're funding are insane in scale. NEOM, the flagship project, isn't just a city. It's a 10,000 square mile region, larger than Israel, designed for 9 million people. The line, a 170-kilometer linear city, will house 1 million people in a structure 200 meters wide, 500 meters tall, stretching across the desert like a mirror wall. No cars, no emissions, powered entirely by renewable energy. It sounds like science fiction. The construction cost? $500 billion minimum, maybe $1 trillion, all funded by oil money. But NEOM is just the beginning. They're building the Red Sea project, 50 islands turned into luxury resorts, Qiddiya, an entertainment city to rival Las Vegas, Amaala, an ultra-luxury destination for billionaires. They're investing $100 billion in renewable energy, not to save the planet, but to free up more oil for export. Every solar panel that powers a Saudi home means more oil to sell to Asia. They're using oil money to maintain oil dominance. It's brilliantly cynical. The international investments are equally strategic. Aramco is buying refineries globally, locking in customers for Saudi oil. They own the largest refinery in America in Port Arthur, Texas. They're building massive complexes in China and India. These aren't just business deals. They're political insurance policies. Countries that depend on Aramco refineries can't easily switch suppliers. They're creating addiction to Saudi oil that will last decades beyond any green transition. The technology investments are fascinating. Aramco is pouring billions into carbon capture, claiming they can make oil carbon neutral by 2050. They're developing blue hydrogen made from natural gas with captured emissions. They're even investing in direct air capture, machines that suck CO2 from the atmosphere. The message is clear. Oil isn't the problem, emissions are. And Aramco will solve emissions while keeping oil flowing. It's either the ultimate solution or the ultimate greenwashing, depending on your perspective. But the real innovation is financial. Aramco is pioneering new ways to monetize oil before it's even pumped. They're selling future production rights to sovereign wealth funds. They're creating oil-backed cryptocurrencies. They're structuring deals where countries prepay for decades of oil delivery. They're turning underground oil into above-ground financial instruments. The oil becomes valuable not as a commodity, but as collateral for an entire financial ecosystem. The relationship with America has completely transformed. Once America controlled Aramco. Now Aramco influences America. Every U.S. president must consider Saudi oil in every foreign policy decision. Upset the Saudis, and gas prices spike, voters rebel, elections are lost. The Saudis have learned to play American politics perfectly. They cut production before elections when they want to pressure Democrats. They increase production when they want to support Republicans. They're not just selling oil, they're selling political leverage. China is the new great game. As America tries to reduce oil dependence, China is doubling down. Aramco is selling more oil to China than ever before, accepting payment in yuan instead of dollars. They're building massive refineries in China, creating interdependence that will last generations. The Saudis are betting that even if America goes green, China's billion-plus people will need oil for decades. And they're probably right. China's oil demand is still growing, still accelerating. Every new Chinese car, even if half are electric, means more oil consumption overall. Inside Saudi Arabia, the transformation is surreal. Young Saudis, 70% of the population, are living through the greatest social change in their nation's history. Women can drive, attend concerts, work alongside men. The religious police have been defanged. Entertainment, once forbidden, is everywhere. It's all funded by Aramco, all part of MBS's calculation that young Saudis will accept authoritarian rule if they get prosperity and freedom in return. Aramco money isn't just funding economic transformation, it's buying political stability. But the math remains terrifying. Saudi Arabia needs oil at $80 per barrel to balance its budget. Below that, they're burning through reserves. Above that, they're accelerating the transition to alternatives. They're trapped in a paradox. They need high prices to fund the transition away from oil, but high prices accelerate the end of oil. It's a race against time, and nobody knows who's winning. The climate reality is undeniable. Every year is hotter than the last. The Persian Gulf is becoming uninhabitable. Temperatures reach 130 degrees Fahrenheit in summer. The wet bulb temperature, combining heat and humidity, approaches human survivability limits. Saudi Arabia might have oil for 50 years, but it might not be livable for 20. They're using oil-powered air conditioning to make the desert habitable, while the oil itself makes the planet uninhabitable. The irony is absolute. As we look forward, Aramco faces an existential question. Will it be the last great oil company, extracting the final drops as the world transitions away? Or will it transform into something else entirely, using its massive resources to become a different kind of energy company? The Saudis are betting on both. They're maximizing oil production while it lasts, while simultaneously investing in whatever comes next. They're hedging against their own obsolescence. The numbers tell the story. Aramco made $161 billion profit in 2022, $121 billion in 2023. At current rates, they'll generate over $2 trillion in profit this decade. $2 trillion to transform a desert kingdom into what? A modern economy? A sustainable nation? Or just a monument to the greatest resource extraction in human history? The answer will determine not just Saudi Arabia's fate, but the stability of the entire Middle East. Here's the brutal truth. Saudi Aramco is too big to fail, but also too big to last. It's the ultimate paradox of our time. The world needs Aramco's oil to function, but that same oil is destroying the world's climate. Saudi Arabia needs Aramco's profits to survive, but those profits come from a resource that must be phased out. Everyone knows how this story ends. The question is whether Saudi Arabia can write a new story before the old one concludes. The $2 trillion company that nobody talks about isn't just a business, it's a countdown clock. Every barrel pumped is one closer to the last. Every dollar earned is a bet against obsolescence. Every project funded is a desperate attempt to escape the resource curse. Saudi Aramco isn't just the world's most valuable company, it's the world's most fascinating gamble, and we're all, whether we know it or not, invested in the outcome.